You are listening to the Franchise Growth Catalyst Podcast with Angela Cote. Now, go be awesome.
Hey there, Angela Cote here, and here we go with another episode of the Franchise Growth Catalyst Podcast. All right, so today we are going to talk about collaboration. Collaboration is so foundational in franchising, and it's so beneficial not only in franchising, but in business and in life in general. And as a mentor of mine, Dan Monahan of Clear Summit Group, which owns 6 franchise companies, including Tutor Doctor and College Pro, to name a few, as he says, if in a franchise, if all the thought leadership comes from the top, you are at a competitive disadvantage if you are not leveraging the franchisees who are having the insights from the front line. So collaboration is key. And that's what we're talking about today. And especially in these crazy times we're in right now, it's been really awesome to see the level of collaboration that is happening within franchises and beyond. And so a big topic of conversation these days, because of the pandemic, of course, is that people are asking fellow business owners, how are you doing? Before anything, I really, truly, and sincerely want to acknowledge that I most certainly sympathize with all the businesses out there that are dealing with hardships. There is such a range of situations going on right now, and it's super apparent in my weekly franchisor roundtables. You know, we've got everything from businesses that are still shut down and have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue opportunity and are getting little to no rent relief, just really suffering, to businesses that are thriving as a result of the pandemic. It's just crazy to see. When it started to look like the world was coming to a screeching halt, I just felt like, what can I do? I have to do something here. I wasn't being impacted, the way that a lot of my clients were. And so it was like, how can I help? What can I do? And so one of my natural traits is to bring people together to create exponential outcomes. I love bringing people together. So I jumped on the opportunity to help by hosting what I initially called emergency franchisor roundtables. That's what I called them initially, for about a week or so. And then I realized that, that might almost sound sort of almost chaotic to people. So I just took out the word emergency. But I recently looked back at my calendar and I realized I hosted 3 of these emergency franchisor roundtables, each about 90 minutes long, in the week of the March 16th to the 20th, when the pandemic really became clear that this was a major thing. And it's funny because I think we were all in so much shock, myself included, that I don't even really remember that I did that fast. And I'm excited that I did. And I think it's great when we are in a crisis and we tap into our superpowers and find the thing that we can do to help others. And because I love people and I love facilitating and collaborating, that was my way of jumping in and doing something. And hopefully, it's made some good impact. So the roundtables, they continue to this day. I'm doing them weekly now, and they continue to draw franchisors and franchise company executives that are looking to learn from each other, share ideas and build relationships, and sometimes really just to see their franchise friends. We're not seeing each other because we're obviously not traveling, and especially us Canadians, we aren't nobody's crossing borders, and a lot of what we do in franchising happens in the US, all the conferences and things. So, they're all not going on anyway, but when they are, who knows if we'll even be able to get across that border. So, it's been amazing to have a forum to see each other and just work together. And I'm getting some amazing feedback from people who attend that they're getting a lot of value from this collaboration, which has a lot to do with why I'm inspired now more than ever to launch what you're going to hear about, my Play Bigger performance groups, which are no doubt a notch up from the roundtables. The roundtables are fantastic. I love them. They're an opportunity that's free for people. Just any franchisor can join. They just need to reach out to me, send me a message and ask for an invite, and I'll send one along. And we'll talk about challenges and things like that, just like at a round table at a conference where you never know who is going to show up. You never know what nuggets of information you're going to get, but you go because you know that there's a good possibility you'll get something. And if nothing else, you'll meet maybe a couple new people. So no doubt those are great, but the Play Bigger performance groups that I'm about to launch are a notch up from this. And I'm going to talk a little about it today in the podcast, but I'm actually going to record a second podcast where I'm going to dive deeper into what the Play Bigger performance groups actually are and what they're all about. So I just wanted to point out that where all this excitement comes from for collaboration. I mean, I was already excited about collaboration prior to COVID hitting, of course, we all are. And, it's amazing in franchising. There's just so much opportunity in collaborating, but especially during this past few months, it's been just so exciting to be able to live and breathe it, this collaboration and see the value and feel the value that comes from it. So I'm just even more kind of excited and inspired than ever to provide these new Play Bigger performance groups. So this podcast is not all about the groups. It's more about collaboration in franchising. And my goal is to give you some key takeaways as we go. So stay tuned, get that pen and paper out. I love when people leave feeling energized and inspired from hearing my insights to go do some things that they hadn't thought about doing. If you've ever listened to my podcast or heard me speak, that's something I'm super passionate about. So, all right, here we go. So there's so much that I could say about collaboration, but I'm going to start by saying that it really truly is it is in the foundation of franchising. What do I mean by that? In franchising, you have franchise owners running the exact same business, right? They're in different markets, but they're running the same business and they're often dealing with the exact same challenges. There's just such an opportunity here for franchisees to learn so much from each other and be inspired by each other. So as a franchisor, it's our job to foster as much opportunity as possible for your franchisees to collaborate. As a franchise advisor, something that I hear a lot when I say that is we're kind of afraid to bring our franchisees together because, well, A, we don't know how. That's fair enough. And B, we're kind of afraid because we don't know, we're afraid of what negativity might come up. So first of all, on the topic of how, I'm going to answer this in just a minute. So let's first chat about franchisors who are fearful of bringing franchisees together because of the possibility of negativity that gets brought up. I've heard this a lot. So if you're worried about that, here's my thoughts. It's better to deal with any negativity than let it fester. You want to hit it head on, and you'd rather, if you hear about it, then at least you can address it. If you don't hear about it, you can't try to fix it. So if you leave it, there's a risk that your franchisees are going to continue to find each other within the network who have the same negative concerns. And the next thing you know, they're starting an angry franchise owners association and working against you. So it is so important to be prepared to deal with that negativity. And the fact that if you are worried about that, that might be a red flag that you've got a problem within your culture. If there are enough people that are negative, maybe you're missing something, or you've maybe got some weaknesses when it comes to leadership. And I don't mean that, in a critical way, but in more of a constructive way. That, what happens all the time is people love their business and they franchise it, but they've never been in this situation to be a franchisor at this level of leadership that's required. So it's not a fault on your part, but at least recognize it. And if you are afraid to bring your team together for fear of negativity in that, then maybe you need to spend some time with doing some professional development and learning how to deal with negative franchisees, including how to manage them in group settings. And side note, that's something I'm super passionate about and have a lot of expertise in. So, and resources and things like that. So if that's sort of hitting home for you, feel free to reach out and we can have a quick conversation about how I can potentially help you with that, or maybe we'll even solve your problems in a quick conversation. So if the negativity is unfounded or offside and you're doing everything you can do as a leader, then I usually find that say I'm the one facilitating and negativity comes up, I usually find that I can politely acknowledge, okay, I hear your concern. And I might even thank them for bringing it up if it's, relatively valid, or at least it's, just civil and justified. And that in the interest of productivity for the group, I'll say, hey, thank you. And I hear you. And let's set up a separate conversation about that concern. So that's my recommendation on how to deal with those concerns or negativity if they do come up in a group setting. But the value that comes from the group setting far, 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 far outweighs the risk or concern of negativity coming up in that situation where you bring your franchisees together. So hopefully you're sold. And so some examples. Let's talk about examples of collaborative sessions. How can you get your franchisees together to collaborate? What are some ways you can do this? Well, there's been some extremely interesting blessings that have come from COVID. And one of them is that people have gotten a lot more comfortable, as everybody knows, with virtual meetings and sessions and things like that. It's interesting because I've been using Zoom for about 4 or 5 years. And what's been amazing is to see that people now, because people are using it more, they're a lot more comfortable and people are getting on Zoom and I don't have to teach them how to use it anymore. I used to have to kind of say, have you been on Zoom? Here's how you do it. Most people have been on either Zoom or some kind of virtual platform. And so there's so much opportunity. It's like ridiculous. It's just easy. So I recommend a few different things. Some examples include a monthly virtual session with your group of franchisees, where you brainstorm together, or get them brainstorming rather, with you kind of sitting back, how to solve various business challenges, everything from dealing with employee issues. We know that's one of the biggest challenges for small business owners. Another one, how to get more customers, how to get more people through the door, how to get more clients, how to close more clients. Any of that can be a theme. And something like how to deal with upset customers. Whatever the pain point or challenge the franchisees are having, you can have a monthly virtual session and you can rotate through the topics. You can maybe pick the top 4 topics, might be, as I said, employee challenges, getting people in the door, dealing with upset customers and whatever else, and rotate through those, and then maybe pop in a unique one every now and then as well. So this is one of my very most favorite ways to bring franchisees together. And it's something that I've been fortunate to have the opportunity to do with various franchise systems, both in like one-off situations and or with current clients that are just, I'm coming in and doing that on an ongoing basis for them. And so it can be, like I said, can be done monthly, or it could be just a one-off session to get people revved up about something like finding new customers. But I just, every time I've been fortunate enough to facilitate something like this for franchisees, whether it's virtual or in person, obviously these days virtual, it just is mind-blowing to me how simple it is and how much impact it makes. So, people just love that opportunity. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But just to clarify, this is something that can be facilitated by someone on the franchise company team. So it could be, if it's a small, early emerging franchisor, it could be the founder themselves or your ops person. Or if you're further along, you might have franchise business coaches that can facilitate it. But there's also a lot of value in bringing in a neutral third party to help people think differently. Just stop thinking about all the things you already are doing and think about maybe, well, have you thought about this or have you thought about that? That's the value of bringing in a neutral third party. So side note, hello, I love doing this. If you need help, let me know. Anyway, it's just such a fantastic way to support your franchisees and leverage the collective wisdom of the group. I see so many awesome ideas come from franchisees. They come from the front line because they're living and breathing and doing the work out there in the field, right? And so they are the ones experiencing and realizing, it'd be really good if we did this or we had that or so and so on. The Big Mac, many people know, but maybe don't. Big Mac is a perfect example of a an idea that came from a franchisee back in 1960 or something. You can look it up. So highly recommend a collaborative session where you take the opportunity to brainstorm with the franchisees and hear their great ideas. As I said early in this podcast, Dan Monahan of Clear Summit Group, rockstar franchisor with 6 franchise brands, says, you are at a competitive disadvantage if all the thought leadership comes from the top. So collaborating and getting these ideas out there. And when you brainstorm, you don't have to screen the ideas. Let the ideas free flow. And then once it comes time to implement ideas, that's when you can evaluate them. So don't stifle the creativity by evaluating the ideas as they come out when you do these kind of brainstorming sessions. Let the ideas come out, talk about them, let them go as far as they can go. And that's where you're going to find the magic. So it's, definitely, you can probably feel it or hear it in my voice that I have a lot of passion for this, for the idea of monthly collaborative sessions. They're really a great way to stimulate exciting ideas to the surface and to get those ideas heard. And it's just so incredible when you see a franchisee getting inspired to do something that another franchisee is doing. Like one franchisee talks about something they tried and they're thinking, oh, I did this, and they're kind of humble about it. And other franchisees are sitting there going, oh my gosh, that is such a good idea. It's so easy and actionable. I'm going to go do that. And so I just get excited when I see that. And, there's so much more weight that comes from when they hear it from their peers because they believe that the peer can relate, right? Then rather than the franchisor saying, oh, just go do this idea. But when they hear it from their peers, it's just that the credibility is so much higher and they listen. So, I just drool over this. Anyway, so here's, I'm going to go through kind of how to facilitate a monthly collaborative session because I want to make sure I leave you with some clear actionable takeaways here. So first of all, decide on a theme, whether that's one of my favorites is how to get people in the door without spending a lot of money or zero money, really, organically. That's something we did a lot at M&M Meat Shops, my family business. We were known for community events and doing things that's just made us stand out and created attention. On a quick side note, one thing we did that I haven't talked about lately, which is ridiculously funny when I think back, is we actually had the Guinness Book of World's record for the world's longest sausage. It was something like 43.6 kilometers. Sorry, American friends, you'll have to do the math. It's probably something like 27 miles. And it was linked sausage. And so we got some great PR for that. And anyway, I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but I get really excited about community marketing and getting franchisees to get out there and build business. So I love the idea of maybe that as a starting point for a collaborative monthly session. So decide on the theme, say that's the theme, clarify with the group, what's the purpose here? We're going to, hey gang, today we're here to work together, to learn from each other, to support each other. And we're hoping that everybody picks one thing today that they're going to leave with and they're going to feel good about, and they're going to go back and implement in their business after we leave here today. So that's the clarifying of the purpose and the outcomes. What I do is I get everybody to start by putting in the chat, in the messaging chat on if this is a virtual call, what they want to get out of the call. What is something, why did they come on this call? What did they come here hoping for? That way, as a facilitator, I kind of know what direction to take things. And if I see something on there that's sort of not realistic, I can point that out and say, okay, we're getting a bit of a range here. Today, we're going to focus on this, but it's great to see what other things people are looking for so we can address those in further monthly sessions together. Don't forget to break the ice. Don't get on a call and expect people to suddenly be talking. Most people are a little uncomfortable. So do something to break the ice. That could be anything from asking everybody to share what's their favorite food to a win they had or whatever it is. And then just start working through the topics that people have, the ideas, the topics in the chat, or the ideas that get them to start sharing things that worked for them, that they've done in the past 30 days, for example. So work through that, have that conversation. And then at the end, make sure you ask for key takeaways from the group. What did you get out of today? What's the one thing you are going to go and do as a result of this monthly collaborative session. Get them to say it, take a note of it so that next month you can go back and go, hey, how'd that go? Did you do that thing? No? Oh, why not? Can I help you? What roadblocks did you hit? Or you could have their franchise business coach reach out and ask them those questions. So that's in a nutshell, the monthly collaborative sessions. I just think if you're not doing this, you are missing out, sister or brother. So what else can you do to collaborate? I'm going to move on from monthly collaborative sessions and talk about opportunities to socialize. Right now in COVID, it's been great to see a lot more companies taking advantage of the opportunity to bring together their team virtually. And I know a lot of people are already doing some form of this. Don't let this go, people. It's just because COVID is sort of, I don't know, settling in or not, because we're starting to see some new spikes. But just because we're kind of getting used to it doesn't mean we should get complacent. So make sure you stay on top of this and keep going. I know a lot of people are getting they're really appreciating the opportunity to see their colleagues and peers. My recommendation would be to do maybe like a happy hour you could do a happy hour for every Friday. You can do, one of my clients, Be Balanced Hormone Weight Loss Centers, does a happy half hour every Friday. You could bring people on and just ask everybody to share wins. If you've got, a big team, a lot of franchisees, just get them to write it in the chat at the very least. And so everybody can sort of see the wins and feel kind of positive. You could, instead of that, you could do icebreaker type games on your happy hour. You could do, one of those like name that tune, or you could play bingo or whatever. There's lots of ways you can play games online. You could have fun competitions of some sort, like who could come up with the funniest hat and show up for their happy half hour or whatever it is. But keep in mind, it's all about building relationships. As a franchisor, you shouldn't always be just giving technical information. You need to be spending a lot of time building community and building the team and building relationships so that the franchisees will then go and reach out to each other for help and not just to you. Next idea I have for you for collaborating, getting the franchisees collaborating to work together. So the first one was the monthly collaborative sessions. Number 2 was the social opportunities. Number 3 is the peer performance groups. These are small, intimate groups of people franchisees who come together, they challenge each other, they help each other, and they hold each other accountable to what they said they were going to do. These can be held bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly, or whatever. Prior to COVID, people did a lot of this in person, but these days it's really, hey, why not do it online? Do it virtually. And really it's about getting intentionally intimate. So it's the same group of people, maybe 4 people that meet regularly, the same 4. So you get to know each other. You get to know each other's business challenges. And so you can get more productive in your meetings together when you start to approach, how you're going to help each other. There's various approaches to peer performance groups within franchising, but typically each person has an opportunity to share a challenge with the group, and the group then takes turns helping to solve. Action steps and accountability are going to happen at the next session. Like, hey, first you do action steps, but at the next session you are like, okay, did you do your action steps kind of thing? You might rotate through doing a deeper dive on each participant's business and open up like the books and everything. Maybe quarterly, you do a deep dive on each member. And so I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast that I'm launching something called my Play Bigger Performance Groups. And this is exactly how we're going to run these. It's going to be intimate, small groups, where we deep dive together and really get to know each other and each other's businesses and build trust and build relationships so that we can really help each other. Now, a great book on how to facilitate performance groups is written by a good buddy of mine and a rock star in the franchise world named Justin Waltz. And the book is called Disrupt from Within. So I highly recommend you check that out if you're trying to understand peer performance groups. Now, keep in mind, the book was written pre-COVID, but you can certainly make adjustments for doing things virtually. So check it out. Now, just on a kind of on a note of like all of these collaborative opportunities I talked about, if you're an established franchisor with lots of units, keep in mind, you can break the system up regionally and have the franchise business coaches or other people on the franchise company team facilitate. So when I talk about these like monthly collaborative sessions, it doesn't need to be the whole franchise company. It can be broken up into like groups of 20 or something like that. So we talked about collaboration amongst franchisees and the value of that. And now I'm going to move on to the collaboration with the franchisor. So here we go. I'm going to just talk about a couple things here because I don't want this to get too long. But first and foremost, if you don't have a franchise advisory council, you got to get one. If you're really early on, you can do this super informally and just call all of your franchisees the franchise advisory council. But basically, it's about bringing them together to give the franchisees a voice and to get insights from the franchisees on decisions that you are making as a corporate office. Build camaraderie between franchisees and the head office. Build that so that you don't come into an us-them situation, and to provide a space for franchisees just to even learn about decisions made by head office. Like often head office has to make decisions for the good of the franchise group, and at least to have that opportunity to create buy-in and help people understand the why. And it's also a fantastic opportunity for the franchisor to get input on decisions, get input on the decisions they're making, but get input from the front line. So that's why you need to do it. And so again, if you're emerging or really early, you can just do this informally with any of your franchisees. But once you get to a point where you form a franchise advisory council, I typically you got to have at least 10 units, but maybe closer to 20. It's just really just a group of franchisees that are going to be chosen by the leadership team at the franchise head office, or they can be elected by the franchisees. And they come together to share ideas and input on initiatives being proposed by home office. So that is kind of all I'm going to say right now about franchise advisory councils, because that would be a really long podcast if I kept going. And I'm going to actually do another podcast where I talk about franchise advisory councils. So stay tuned for that. And if you're hearing this and thinking, oh, I can't wait for that, send me a message and I'll get on it faster than I'm planning on. I'll move it to the top. Anyway, another way that you can collaborate as a franchisor with your franchisees is through committees. So as the system grows, you can create committees. And so examples of when you might form committees would be like you're trying to figure out, say, what charity to partner with as a franchisor corporately for all the franchisees. Get the franchisees to decide and do the research. Or perhaps, you could form a convention planning committee. We want to put together a convention. Everybody wants it to be fun and exciting. Get some franchisees to start doing the homework on it, research where to go, and have them propose where to go, who should speak, what kind of topics should be covered. Other examples include marketing, innovation, and new product committees. There's no shortage of topics that you can set up committees, and that way franchisees feel heard, and they have that opportunity to give their insights. It's just super valuable to have franchisees involved in, researching and decision making, because they're usually more bought in then. And then, secret note, they can't blame you for decisions you make on everyone's behalf if they were involved in the decision-making process. So it's a great way for franchisees, really to buy in, have more buy-in, and for them to start to understand all that goes on behind the scenes. All right, we're about to wrap up soon here, but before I go, I want to talk quickly about optimizing collaboration. It's super important when you bring people together to collaborate in whatever setting that is, that you ensure that participants know the value of coming in with an open mind, ready to learn from others and ready to contribute to the group. But I also always say ready to share the floor, like contribute, but I always kind of joke and say, we've got a no rambling rule here. Be careful that you're not taking too much time up, because we're here and everybody needs to have a voice. So I always kind of joke and say we have no rambling rule, which sometimes backfires because then people are afraid to talk. So be careful on that one. But I try to make sure that the expectations are clear up front, that, this is only going to be as valuable as you want it to be based on your contribution, your involvement, and your open mind. And so if you're more open-minded, you're likely to get some good value, which can be anything from a new idea to just validation on something you're doing to feeling supported, not feeling alone. So that's how I would recommend you optimize collaboration, is really that expectation setting at the beginning. There's probably a lot more I could talk about there too, but I'm going to keep moving and briefly tell you that amongst all of this COVID and collaboration, one thing that's become especially apparent to me is that here we are having all these collaborative opportunities for franchisees. But what about the franchisor? What collaborative opportunities did they have to go and be with peers and people that understand those deep challenges that they go through and understand the weight on your shoulders of having franchisees in your system who are struggling with profitability and struggling with even making ends meet right now, especially right now because of COVID? Who do franchisors have? And yes, they have each other in some ways. You can reach out, but sometimes you just get stuck in your day to day and you don't take the time to reach out. So this is really why I created my Play Bigger performance groups. Conferences are on pause. And even when they are there and they are available, they're great. But a lot of franchisors, especially the emerging guys, go there alone, and they get there and they're like going to the education sessions, sitting in on roundtables. But when it comes to the social events, they're just maybe too shy. And so I want to create something where franchisors, especially like those people that feel alone, have a group of friends and a group of people that they've built a relationship with. And it's not just a one-off at a conference and you just see each other when you go to conferences, but something ongoing in between conferences. And so that's really what what my Play Bigger performance groups are all about. And hopefully I've left you with I've piqued your curiosity. I am going to record a separate podcast where I will dive deeper into the details of the Play Bigger performance groups and how you can get involved. I'll save that for another time, and you can reach out and check that out. I feel so blessed and I feel so honored to have been able to be there for franchisors, both clients and just people in my network, and have the opportunity to grow and build my relationships. And I recognize that that's beneficial to me as well. I'm not trying to pretend that I'm a saint. I just really, truly enjoy it. And I really am passionate about how I can help. Hopefully you're inspired to do whatever it is that you can do to help and to collaborate and bring your franchisees together and to make it a community of people who are looking out for each other. I mean, if you're not doing that, you're really missing out. It's the franchise model. So I'm more than happy to talk more about this. It's just such a passion of mine. Please send me a message. I'll chat with you, see if we can give you some free tips and content, whatever you need. In the meantime, keep an eye out for my Play Bigger performance group launch. The applications, now I say applications because we're not really screening, but rather using scientific data, care of Rebecca Monet from Zoracle Profiles. We're actually using her profile assessments, which are used in franchising a lot. If you haven't checked them out, make sure you do go look up Zoracle, spelled with a K. So it's Zorakle, or if you're in Canada, Zorakle, same word. I just made a joke there, but go check it out. Zoracle Profiles. We're going to use that as a way to really match people up for the Play Bigger performance groups, which again, I'll talk about more in the podcast that I do explaining it, but we want to make sure that we pair up the right people. So it's not so much an application as it is a assessment to make sure that we're putting the right people together so that we can maximize the value for you. All right. I am going to wrap this up and close off. Thank you so much for your support and for listening. And please reach out. I love having conversations with people about anything to do with relationships and franchising and collaboration. So I'm here for you. Now go be awesome.
Copyright 2020, Angela Cote Inc. All rights reserved.